and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down the week that was, the week that's going to be, and some other shenanigans along the way, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, this last weekend from the betting perspective was not the greatest, as I was on the wrong side of the Michigan team total there. Should have just went with the game line, but I'm excited to have another shot at this college football playoff and a chance to see the game in the national championship, which would be the most incredible thing I think I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you, Utah. I appreciate you guys doing your part. I thought for sure we would play in the semis as a way to kind of build up excitement, but the committee thinks that there's a chance that we could play in the Natty, and that would be one hell of a ride if we can make that happen. Although the last two games have not been very fun at the end, so cautiously optimistic that we can make it happen. And obviously, rocking your Yankees hat, as the Yankees did indeed bring Aaron Judge back after it seemed like a foregone conclusion that he was about to be a San Francisco Giant, but you know, your team keeps taking those W's and my team keeps taking the L's. I am a little excited just because I am worried about somebody who is 6'7" and getting a lower body injury and breaking down in that back half of that contract looking truly horrendous. And the Juiced Ball article that came out was pretty convenient too. So we can dive into that. But we do have the playoff set. We have Georgia versus my Ohio State Buckeyes. And then we have your Michigan Wolverines versus the TCU Horned Frogs. I think it's the right four, obviously. You know, in a normal year, Ohio State really doesn't deserve a chance. But in this year, I think it makes a lot of sense. Buckeyes it was 7 and it quickly went to 6.5 most places, which I think is really interesting. We were kind of talking a little bit about it, but it really feels like Ohio State money line or Georgia minus the points. Like, I don't think this is going to be like a 4-point game where Georgia covers and Ohio State wins. I think if Ohio State is clicking and looks great, they can absolutely beat Georgia. They throw all over them. They look really good, and everybody's shocked and awed. And if they aren't clicking, it looks a lot like that Michigan game from 2 years ago. The defense is amazing. The run game kills us, and Stetson Bennett is off to another national championship.
Yeah, it's an interesting game to kind of analyze when you look at numbers and you try to compare, like, how does Georgia match up versus Ohio State's defense? How does Ohio State's offense match up against Georgia's defense? You know, and all that being said, Ohio State wound up winning early in the year, albeit against a Notre Dame defense that looked really good coming towards the back half of the season. Georgia's offense, for as good as it is, I mean, might be me looking through some maize-colored glasses, but I don't think they're as good or efficient running the ball. Now, maybe passing the ball just with their weapons they have on the outside, and of course, Brock Bowers being a friggin' monster. They definitely, propose some different difficulties for defenses to prepare for. But, Ohio State was winning the game against Michigan if it wasn't for those big splash plays that happened. And late in the game, we talked about this last week. When you're stacking the box, you're going to potentially give up long touchdowns. So that wasn't really surprising to see. CJ Stroud still put up over 300 again for the second year in a row against Michigan's defense, who was the number one defense in the country coming into that game. So I don't think Ohio State's going to have an issue moving the ball. The only thing is going to be protection for CJ Stroud, and they cannot, very similarly to what happened to Michigan last year, they cannot allow Georgia to get out to a double-digit lead, because then the pass rushers are unleashed for Georgia, and all
Yeah.
hell is going to break loose.
At least Stroud in that passing game is significantly better than what Michigan ran out last year, and I really like what that challenge could be. But yeah, I agree. If they get down and the pass rush can just go, it's going to be scary. The Georgia defense, while incredible, is not as good as it was last year. It's not as full of pros, so the door is open for one of our teams to potentially knock off the defending champ. That being said, if you want to get into the future market now and you really believe in Georgia, their price is the best you're going to get it, and it's going to fall apart because Ohio State is a legitimate threat and the books have adjusted the number accordingly. So you're getting a little bit better of a number. And if you think Georgia is the best, you take them now. And then you can hedge a little bit in the national championship if you so choose. And then your Michigan Wolverines, 7.5 points. It was open. It was almost to 10 at open. Interesting spot. We also talked a little bit about this. I think it's an interesting game as I think you guys do a lot of what Kansas State does, but I think you're a better version of that. Obviously, JJ McCarthy, the ability to throw a little bit, I think is going to add another element. Obviously, Will Howard looked much better once he actually got to throw instead of just Adrian Martinez running, as a running back, basically playing quarterback. So, but yeah, I think it's a good spot for you. I think this could be an interesting. I do feel like you guys probably roll. If TCU keeps it close, they probably have a really good chance at winning. So,
of course,
grabbing that money line isn't the worst idea. But yeah, it sure feels like a Georgia Michigan rematch is what we're going to get set for the national championship.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you heard me complaining about Nick Saban's comments all last week leading up to the college football playoff selection show. Point spreads mean absolutely jack shit before games are played on the field, because if that was the case, there would be no reason to actually play these games. So, I mean,
that's the coach speak that I got to spin this on my team. That him and Dabo are the kings of spinning anything they can to get their team in that Final Four. And
of course.
And he knew, like, they didn't have like a big event like they normally do. And Clemson, obviously, if Clemson only has one loss, it doesn't lose to South Carolina, they're probably
they're in
of Ohio State. But the Dabo was stubborn and didn't play Cade Klubnik all year, and maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe he still has a couple freshman games, but that team's gonna be really good in a couple of years, or next year rather.
And then I also want just going into this Michigan TCU matchup. Like, obviously, I'm kind of the fan that I don't like to get too high leading into a game. I don't want to feel too confident to be only to be crushed. So of course I'm going to look at this, kind of pessimistically. That being said, Michigan's running offense is going to be really difficult for TCU to defend here. And with TCU's propensity to get down early, if they get down multiple scores to this Michigan team, I will make the statement right now, they are not coming back. They against a team like this, you're not going to be able to do a double-digit comeback in the fourth quarter when having to rely on, your defense getting multiple stops on 3 and outs against an offense that is as efficient as Michigan's is of the recent, past. And I did want to say, I do think that early on, Michigan's going to have difficulty defending TCU's huge receiving core. Everybody on the outside is 6'3" and taller, while Michigan's corners are, kind of diminutive. You're looking at most guys 5'11", maybe like 5'10". So, I mean, TCU definitely has an advantage on the outside. So that'll be something to watch early on. But if Michigan can just do what they do best, run the ball, make sure they get points early, I think they win and they get to the national championship.
Yeah, I'm curious. Quentin Johnson got hurt in the Big 12 championship game. I don't know.
He's been hurt every week for like the last 7 games. I
don't know if he's gonna be able to play in the champion or in the playoff. But yeah, he's kind of a big deal. Okay, let's recap the week that was. If we can talk about another disappointing week, as things just did not go our way. North Carolina, I don't know why I set myself up for this. I thought this is honestly, if they had stuck with DJU, Carolina wins that game. But because they went to Klubnik and all of a sudden the North Carolina defense that looks more like a Conference USA defense. Which Brian, I texted you. I was like, how can I get old Drake May to UNC? Well, their offensive coordinator took another job today. So when Drake May enters the transfer portal, don't say I didn't tell you. But yeah, so that didn't go well. The Chargers, my God, the Chargers. I guess I was more optimistic that their offensive line, specifically Corey Linsley, could be okay. And they looked fine for the first little bit, and then Davante Adams touchdown,
Yep.
and then all Josh Jacobs. And the Chargers, man, they're them and the Cardinals and the Raiders, they're all the same team.
I just want to point out though that so both of those two first teams you talked about, the Cardinals and the Chargers, they're run by innovative offensive coaches who seemingly hold their teams back because they're going for fourth downs in the first quarter. They're like,
no, but they're not. That's the thing. The media gets all over them and they crumble
offense
like a little fish. This is a fun podcast because Brian's very old man and like stay away. We fired our GM Brian because he didn't have enough analytics. So that tells you what
fired
you
your
need.
GM because they traded. You let AJ Brown walk out the door.
Yeah, we gave him away, and then he comes back and dunks on us.
Exactly.
And then rematch 2 touchdowns.
Exactly.
It's been a week, my friend. We didn't get Aaron Judge. We lost my favorite football team. Fired their GM, although the Buckeyes did make the playoffs, so there's always a silver lining. But I did have the team total over, which I think cashed in the first half.
Oh yeah.
The Lions were awesome. It was great to see. That was the easy bet of the week. So I'm happy I used a little more there and was able to recover. You, after being on a little bit of a hot streak, the snow and the ice just smacked you in the face. The team total over, the Michigan offense just kind of laissez-faire it through the first half, which very on brand. Especially in a game where they don't want to show anything. In the second half, they did what they needed to do. Shouts to the Wolverines for getting that backdoor cover and saving my ass on Saturday night. Titans plus 5.5. Ugh. Dolphins plus 4. Those are two of the biggest,
I felt like the Dolphins was actually in play, and then it wasn't until late where I think it was Tua threw his second interception that blew that one out the door.
Yeah. I mean, they lost to Brock Purdy. You can't. The Niners are very, very good, and I know the Niners are playing Brock Purdy, but I think the team really believes in him. I think the coach clearly believes in him because he comes into the game despite not playing, and he still gets 30-something attempts in a game where they're leading a lot of the way.
Yeah.
So there's clearly a confidence in him. And, maybe along the way, figures some stuff out and avoids that Jimmy G costly turnover. So, a lot of coaches have only gotten so much out of their backups, but Kyle Shanahan is 24 and something, 24 and 26, or 24 and 25. I forget. With playing a backup or a marginal starter, like Matt Schaub.
They've
Nick
been
Mullins,
competitive with guys. CJ Beathard,
he knows how to scheme up quarterbacks, and obviously that team is loaded and the defense is incredible. So I'm not super worried. So if you want to get a piece of the Niners, now might be the good time. All that to be said, I'm still 26-16, hitting 60% of my bets. I'm very happy with that. You made up lots of ground. You're almost to 500, but you are still down a little bit in the units category, but we still have a ton of time. We were also talking pre-show, the NASCAR season-long odds, or the championship odds, are out. So Brian and I are going to try and hop on the mic in the very near future and talk about that. So if you enjoy NASCAR betting and rode with us all season, we will try and get that out. We will also have more NASCAR content coming your way. But Brian, it is time. It is time for another round of picks. It is time for one of my favorite picks that I will make throughout the course of the year. It's a service academy under. It's death. It's taxes. It's a service academy under. I got it at 33.5. It is now 32. I will still take that. 43 9-1 since 2006 when service academies meet. The under has gone 43 9-1. The number I want to say Air Force Army or Air Force Navy. The line was 41.5. I said take the under. I believe they scored 24, 23 points combined. Rocking chair finish. These two teams don't want to embarrass each other. They both want to establish the run. They both are willing to punt. The under is absolutely the play. It's getting to a point, Brian, where it's starting to get interesting.
It's getting scary.
You want to hear something even crazier with Will Levis sitting out the Kentucky game? Kentucky and Iowa are playing in a bowl game.
That's got to be like 28 now.
Their total is lower than Army Navy, which is wild.
Well, both of them are going to be on to backup / third string quarterbacks for
Iowa. Doesn't actually have a quarterback because Spencer Petras
is out for the season,
and Padilla, I think, entered the transfer portal. Your boy Cade McNamara is going there. I told you about that a couple weeks ago, but that is official. But anyways, back to winners. Army Navy under 32. That is my best bet of the week, and you will see once we get to the units how confident I am in that.
Kyle's going to go 9 units and half a unit on each of his other two.
We will stay at this game, and Brian will take the Navy money line minus 137 currently on FanDuel.
Yeah, I feel like this is just a spot where Navy has played a much tougher schedule than Army. They've had an extra week of rest heading into this game, which may or may not be beneficial to them, but they've been able to recover after, 10, 11 games of just battering themselves with the style of offenses that these teams play. They've been able to recover. Their offensive line should be a lot better. Army has beaten the living crap out of its last 2 opponents. Yes, I understand that, but that was Massachusetts and Connecticut. So I think this is a spot where I'm not going to lay the 2.5 because some funky things could happen with field goals and all that stuff. So I'd rather just take the money line minus 137. This is the best number I could find with everywhere else at minus 140.
Yeah, no, I like that call. I think that is the right side. I think they are the better team, and even with a little bit of regression kind of overall, I still think they're much, much better than Army. So that's a good call. Let's shift our focus. Let's talk Sunday slate, and stop me if you've heard this before, but Detroit Lions team total over 27.5 is actually plus 105 right now on DraftKings. I think the Lions can get to 28. As I talked about last week, the Lions are going to be favored for the 4th time. The 3 previous times they've crushed the over. They've scored 120 points in the 3 games combined. As I mentioned, they hit their over last week was 25.5. It went over. I wanted to take the Lions minus the 2.5, and I have bet that real dollars, but for the show purposes, I'm going to take the team total because they are the favorite. We saw what the Jets did to them. The Jets should have gotten to 28 last week. Braxton Berrios doesn't drop the ball in the end zone. DeAndre Swift is looking healthier and better. I think Minnesota can be passed on, and the Lions are at home, so I like that too. I think they absolutely crush. And Brian, we'll stay in this game where you're taking the opposite side. So, folks, if you like betting overs, this may be your game.
Yeah, I wanted to just add to your Lions team total bet. They've hit the over and home games in 5 of the 8 spots there, with I think one of the other ones coming. They scored 27 against Miami, so I mean they were only a half a point off of covering 75% of their home games so far this year. Going to my pick here with the Minnesota Vikings. On the opposite side of that, Detroit's defense is also not one of the best in the NFL. They allowed Minnesota to score 28 the last time they played them earlier on in the season in Minneapolis. The Vikings have been kind of, middling these last few games, but they've scored over this number in 3 of their last 4 contests. They were able to score 27 last week against a much better defense in the New York Jets. And I think this game is just going to be up and down all day. I like the game total over 52.5 as well.
Yeah, and those that play DFS, this is a great game to stack on DraftKings and FanDuel.
For sure.
All right. This play was, so there was a few games that I was really debating for my final play. I like Carolina quite a bit. I like who else did I like? We were talking about a few.
The Browns.
I like the Browns, but like Deshaun looked so bad. But this is a great spot. The Bengals just beat Kansas City. Everyone's all over them. The Browns couldn't have looked worse. I think the Bills roll the Jets. But I am going to go with the Denver Broncos plus 9.5 at home versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I am a little worried that because Mahomes just lost that they might try and put it on them. But that defense has been so good all year long. It's really just been the offense has been a disaster. I think this is a slow kind of plotting game. I think there's a lot of ground attack. I think it's they take the air out of the ball. And Brian, hit me with that stat that you mentioned before we started recording that helped kind of seal the deal.
So I went back and looked at it. It's 2 of the last 3 times these teams have played that this game has been decided by 1 score or less. And then going back even further than that, the majority of times that these 2 teams have played, it's been fairly contested until late in the game where either Kansas City got like a late defensive touchdown or Denver was able to pull out a win, way back when. However, when you're looking at coming into this year, Kansas City's defense is, they're playing better, but I think that Denver, even without Cortland Sutton, they might be able to run on this team. And like you said, the Broncos defense is absolutely incredible. And they're able to hold teams enough to give their offense a chance here. And I think at home, this is a spot where Denver really needs to, the defense at least is going to muster up some pride to try to hold Kansas City to some points. We saw last week Cincinnati was able to do it, and I would bet that this Broncos defense is better than the Bengals.
Yeah, and I think like we saw Mahomes get a little banged up, so I'm interested to see how that goes. But I think Denver can do enough defensively. It may be gross. It may not be fun. It may take a late Brandon McManus field goal, but I think they can lose by single digits. And if they can do that, then your boy's going to cover. So I am on the Denver Broncos plus 9.5. Your third and final play, Brian, the Philadelphia Eagles minus 6.5 at the New York Giants.
So this one was a little bit difficult for me to actually go in on, just seeing like Philadelphia's road woes this season. They've struggled on the road to put teams away, but this Giants team is, they tied with Washington last week and they held the lead the majority of the time, but this team sucks. Like their defense is good, but they're getting gashed on the ground. Three of their last 4 opponents for the Giants have ran for over 160 yards, I believe. It's some sort of ridiculous number. Yeah, each of their last 3 opponents have run for 160 plus team yards on them. Now they're facing the number 1 running team in the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Eagles defense is playing as good as it has all season. We saw that last week, holding Derrick Henry to, again, under 40 yards rushing, which is absolutely effing ridiculous. And as bad as the Titans offense is, or the perception is, I think they're probably better than what the Giants put out on the field on a weekly basis. So yeah. I think that this is a spot where Philadelphia stomps New York in the Meadowlands, and this is a double-digit win.
Yeah, I think it was very fitting that the Giants and Washington just tied.
Right?
They're the same team. I think there's a world where all 4 AFC or NFC East teams make the playoffs, which probably doesn't happen because they'll end up beating each other. But I think the Cowboys and Eagles are way up here.
Oh yeah.
And the Giants and Washington are way down here. It's
well, the Giants can't score. Like the only way they get points on the board is by some fluke Daniel Jones long ass scramble or some big breakaway run by Saquon and then some luck touchdown or a short field.
And I do like the Giants. I always find myself leaning towards them. I bet them on Thanksgiving and got that
Well, that
luck
was the right
box backdoor
side, I think.
cover. And I probably would bet the Giants again, especially after last week. But the Eagles are very, very good. And as someone holding a 55-1 ticket on Jalen Hurts to win MVP, I want them to keep rolling. So I will side with you. Let's recap our card, Brian. Let's give the people the units per bet. And we will get the hell out of here. Brian kind of alluded to it. I kind of alluded to it. I have 3 bets on my card. Army Navy under 32, Detroit Lions team total over 27.5, and the Denver Broncos plus 9.5. I am going to put 6 units on the under. I am going to put 2 units on the Lions team total over 27.5, which is plus money, so I like that. And then 2 units on the Denver Broncos plus 9.5. And that may get to 10, Brian. We kind of debated that,
Yep.
but I think closer to kickoff. So if you like Denver, the odds of it moving up over down is much higher. And what the worst case scenario, it moves to 9, you're still fine. So
Yeah, exactly.
I would be patient with that one, but I put in 2 units there.
All right. Yeah. For my card, I got Navy money line minus 137 versus Army. Vikings team total over 25.5 at Detroit. And then the Eagles minus 6.5 at the Giants. I'm going to go with 3 units on Navy to take home the victory in the Commanders Classic or whatever the heck they call it.
Commander in Chief's trophy.
Commander in Chief trophy. I'm going to go 5 units on the Vikings team total, 25.5. I feel like this number is far too low. And as like weird that their season has been with their point differential, I still think that Minnesota probably takes home the victory here, which is definitely going against what popular opinion would be this week, especially considering Detroit's the favorite. So I like them to get this team total over pretty easily. And then the Eagles minus 6.5 at the Giants. I'm going to go with 2 units there, being this is a little bit of the more risky play on the road.
For sure. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. As I mentioned, if you enjoy our NASCAR content, we will be recording something hopefully this weekend to take a look at those early championship odds. Maybe we can find some other stuff in between. But we will be back next week if you are just here for the football. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. You guys enjoy the weekend, win some bets, and we will talk to you next time.